So, episode 7 to 9 of Love is Blind has finally dropped. And I have to ask the question, right? What is going on with Kenneth? Did anyone see that plot twist coming? Because I didn't. I've been rooting for Kenneth and Brittany. I have some theories. And I'm hoping that we can talk about them. And you let me know in the comments down below what you think about why Kenneth has gone quiet. Like someone stole his voice or something. He ain't there. The lights are on, but no one's home. But before we get into all of that, welcome back, or if you're new here, welcome. My name is Alisha Jaye, and we're going to be catching up with episode 7 of Love is Blind. Thankfully, we're not going to be talking heavily about Chelsea and Jimmy. Yay! You lot get a day off. I reckon it will only be a day. Because those two are a hot mess. But we get a day off of them. So I'm going to quickly catch you up first on how all the other couples are doing. And then we're going to spend a lot of time dissecting what's going on with Kenneth and the stuff that's going on with Clay. But before we get into all of that, if you enjoy this type of content, do please hit the subscribe button. I would love for you to join this YouTube family. We're ever growing. And thank you so much for all of you who have been riding and dying with me all this time. I really appreciate and love all of you. And if you enjoy this video, do also press the like button. Right, let's get into all of it. So, the couples are still on their honeymoons and everybody seems to be having a fine and dandy time. Oh wow, showing my Britishness much? Fine and dandy? No one says that. Where did that come from? Anyway, get back to the point. So everybody's having a great time on their honeymoons. Chelsea and Jimmy have made up, you know, and she says I love you like 4 times in 2 minutes. I don't know, like the word I love you, this couple, it just comes up a lot. And maybe that is one of the signs of her neediness. I don't know, but it's giving needy and clingy. Then we have Jeremy and Laura, and they are catching up with the events that happened the night before. And Jeremy basically gave her the silent treatment, slept on the couch, and Laura was not here for it at all. What I found interesting though is she was saying like, well, she's not happy about what he did, and he was very apologetic, you know, that he didn't handle it very well. But in the same hand of it, it kind of made me think, but like, you guys are only in this position because of you, Laura, and your mouth. But she made it about Jeremy, and Jeremy shouldn't be relaying stuff that she said. But if you said it in a joke context that even Brittany knew, on a TV show, I don't know how you can get mad at him for repeating something that is public knowledge because you're being filmed. Make it make sense. So then we caught up with Amy and Johnny, and Amy and Johnny actually have a storyline. Slowly but surely. I do really like these two. They just seem so calm and happy and in love. Just basically the ideal scenario. They get on really well. They really appreciate each other. They're really attracted to each other. And Amy's telling Johnny about how her love for him grows more and more each day. But the fact that it's so perfect, it's kind of scaring her a little bit. It's almost too good to be true. And then Johnny sort of says, you know, yeah, I kind of agree. Like, I'm looking forward, not in a weird way, to when we have our first argument. At least if we get to see what the worst case scenario looks like, then we kind of know how we're going to move forward. But throughout the episode, there are moments where Amy starts to speak more and more about her dad and her family and her nervousness about going back home, because she said based on her culture and the way that her family are, they're very intrusive in her relationships. Like, they are overly involved to the point where it's actually influenced and impacted her previous relationships. So she's saying she's working on that, but in the same breath, she reveals to Johnny that, like, my dad, I have to have his blessing. And if I don't have his blessing, then we can't go forwards. Johnny, poor thing, was in shock. So Johnny is in shock, but then Johnny's got his own concerns. Johnny has a conversation with Laura. That conversation was a little bit weird to me. So Laura starts sharing with Johnny, you know, I see you and Amy together. Your chemistry is so great. Like, I'm so obsessed with you guys. I'm watching you two and thinking there is no way that they haven't had sex. They must be at it. And I'm like, Laura, boundaries. But then again, she doesn't really have many boundaries, which is how the bean dip situation came to exist in the first place. Anyway. So she's like, you know, you guys must be at it. So then Johnny reveals the fact that they haven't slept together. They're taking it slow because Amy's not on birth control. And apparently he thought all women were on birth control. That was news to me. Anyway, he doesn't want them to end up getting pregnant too early because they want to have financial stability first of all, and he wants to travel. So he's got all these dreams and plans with Amy, and he wants children, but just not right now. Which makes me think, actually, like, if he's waiting for birth control, is he waiting for her to go on birth control? Or is he going to wait for marriage? Like, yeah, that was interesting. I personally think that Laura asked him because she knew that Amy was not talking. Because if you notice, the last time they all tried to talk about the intimate side of their relationships, Amy done a runner. Amy was not sticking around for it. She got up and she left. I'm going to go find Johnny. So to me, the fact that Laura actually went through to Johnny instead to find out about their sex life, I think is quite telling. I'm just saying. During the beach day, Chelsea, Laura and AD are all standing together. Chelsea reveals the fact that she and Jimmy have now slept together. And it was the argument that they had about AD's stacked body that led to that argument, which led them to be intimate. And then Clay later on also goes and relays the same thing back to AD. And I'm like, I know I wasn't a big fan of Jimmy and Chelsea, but this is weird. It was so weird to the point that even AD had to be like, I'm so glad that my behind was able to help you guys move to the next level. Your man has to be attracted to somebody else for you to finally sleep together. Something's not right there. Can't just be me. Then we also have Jeremy. Jeremy spends some time with AD. He apologises for the events of the night before. That I found quite revealing, because imagine that. The person who was the least offensive, in my opinion, is the person who's actually apologising to AD, and he didn't really do anything wrong other than relaying back what his fiancée said. I found it quite revealing and interesting, maybe, that Jeremy, who actually didn't really do anything wrong, is the only person who feels icky about it. That's quite alarming. But speaking of him, he had a conversation with Amy, right? He starts spilling about what happened between him and Sarah and why he chose Laura over Sarah. And it's the stuff we already knew. But the more interesting part is when he starts saying about how, you know, he wants to meet Sarah and he hopes that they could be friends one day. Like he would actually be friends with her. And Amy's just like, I'm not saying a damn thing. That's what I kind of like about Amy. Amy sees and hears, but she's not talking. Amy seems to be able to get all the goss, all the info. She's the first to know everything by the looks of it. And yeah, that's pretty much the rest of the couples. I mean, Chelsea was still doing the most on the beach. Like at one point she was talking to the girls and saying, I love him. I love that man. It's because I love you. I love you. And it was like, oh, okay. Now that we've covered all of the other couples, we can get into Kenneth. What is going on with Kenneth? I have a theory. But before I give you my theory, let me dissect what happened. So it's the next day after the beach night, and he tells Brittany, you know, I had a conversation with AD and we talked about, you know, race and that being a thing. So Brittany was very open-minded. She was like, you know, I really hope that the intentions were good, you know, because I can appreciate that, you know, she's a black woman talking to a black man and the black experience is not something I'm going to know about. She said, so I hope the intentions are pure. And he was very reassuring that, like, you know, there was no ill intent on AD's part. So she was fine with that conversation. As long as the intentions are pure, then that's all I care about. But then he starts revealing the fact that it's kind of made him really concerned, because it's kind of dawned on him that, like, you're going to have to go home. And he knows his family and he knows his friends. And he knows that the same questions that AD is asking, he's going to get those questions when he comes home. It's one thing to have it from a stranger, but it's another thing to have it from your people. So he's now getting concerned about that. And Brittany's trying to be reassuring. She was like, you know, and I love the way that she handled it, really. She just showed so much maturity and knowledge that I don't think that there's anything that we've seen of her so far that he should really be concerned about in terms of how she's going to handle it. Because she even goes as far as to ask him, so you're saying that your family just want to make sure that we're good, and are we prepared for what the world's going to be like with us? What would make you feel good? And he says, well, you know, you said to me that, like, you can handle it because, and it kind of gave her the impression that maybe she's dated black men before. I'm not entirely sure. But it gave the impression that she has. So this is not her first interracial relationship. So he says that, like, you say that, like, you can handle it, but the actions, seeing how you actually are when we're in the real world, will kind of cement it for me. And that's pretty much the last time we really heard Kenneth say anything. Because after that, Kenneth lost his voice. Kenneth was giving Ariel after Ursula did her thing. He was not talking. So they go on a boat ride, and it felt like the longest silence ever, which is probably why they called this episode The Silence Speaks Volumes. It was so quiet. It was so quiet. He's just sitting there looking into the distance. She's sitting there looking into the distance. But if you looked at her body language, Brittany's body language, you could see that she was not comfortable. She kept playing with her fingers. She kept tapping on the side. Like, she was not comfortable with it at all. The only thing that actually got him to speak again was the fact that he saw dolphins. And apparently he's really passionate about dolphins. To the point where Brittany even had to make a joke of it and was like, can I get dolphins on aisle 3? If it gets you to talk. She keeps trying to pull conversation out of him, but it didn't really take. I mean, at one point Brittany starts sharing, like, do you like physical touch? And he's like, yeah, I do actually. And, I really appreciate it. And she's like, tell me more. Tell me more. Talk. Anyway, so they talk about physical touch, and she says to him that, like, she would actually like him to touch her more. And he says that he feels like he might have been already smothering her. And she's like, no, touch me more. Like, we're Christian, but we can still touch. And then he just went quiet again. But the thing is, it wasn't even just that he was quiet. You can tell that he's deep, deep, deep in thought. My theory is this. I think the problem is that now he's getting in his head. I think cold feet are starting to happen. I think it's that thing, I don't want to swear, but like, when things get real? I think that that's what's happening to him. The closer they're getting towards going home, I think the AD conversation triggered him, and now he's realizing, oh my gosh, I actually have to go home. Oh my gosh, I actually have to face people and deal with whatever repercussions. Oh my gosh, maybe people are going to look at me differently now, because there are stereotypes of what it means if a black man is dating a white woman, what his mindset's like, what his the things that he's going to encounter, the backlash from people who cannot accept it in this day and age. Anyway, and I think that all that is playing around in his mind quite heavily. But the thing is it makes me feel sorry for Brittany as well, because there's nothing she can really say or do to get him out of his head zone, because that's just stuff that, like, only he can really deal with. But it's concerning. And I thought, okay, it's not cute, but maybe he's just having a quiet, reflective day. Except for when they got home and they're in their new place, it was more of the same. And I'm like, Kenneth, you're making me worried, okay? I've been rooting for you guys. I've been ride or dying for the last 6 episodes, talking about how great you guys are. And now you're there on the phone. Now they should be all excited. It's our home. We're going to be living here for the next month. It's going to be so great. Brittany gets to work. She starts unpacking everything. She's like, babe, I'll put stuff out. Do you want the left side? Do you want the right side? And she's again trying to talk to him. What is Kenneth doing? He's living on his phone. He's so excited to get his phone back. I mean, he spoke more to us than he did to her, right? He's so excited to have his phone back because he wants to get in touch with his family and catch up with work stuff. Now, at one point, Brittany's like, don't spend too long on your phone. And he's like, I'm trying to prepare for my presentation. Now, I get it. I know teacher life. Been there, done that. I get it. It's intense. And let alone if I was a principal or head teacher. We call them head teacher in the UK. The workload is a lot. As a teacher, it's a lot. And if you ever want to know about the life of a teacher or why I even left teaching, I can do a whole video on that if you want. Anyway, I digress. Let me know in the comments. Let me know. But the teacher life is no joke. So I get it. But my thing is this, right? You've just moved in. Give it like a couple of hours. Settle in with your fiance. Hug her, kiss her, unpack together, build the home together. Why is she doing it all by herself? And there were times where even Brittany was talking to him and he literally did not even answer her. It's not looking cute already. Like, I'm concerned. And that probably would speak to why in the previews we saw her saying that, like, since we got back, you've been a completely different person. And we're already seeing it. Like, after that conversation about AD, he's hardly said anything since. So it's not looking good for our favourite couple, people. Or one of our favourites. It's not looking good. It's not looking good at all. Whether they'll be able to come back from this, I don't know. But Kenneth needs to start talking if they have any chance of surviving. Then we move on to Clay and AD. Now, I have to admit, these two, they're really growing on me. I never really disliked them anyway, but Clay would just, like I said, Clay's always been 50-50 for me. Like, he'll say something that makes me like him, and then he says something that's like, oh my days, Clay, why? Oh my gosh. So Clay and AD go on a date, and it's really sweet, and they're having a nice time together, eating their meals. And there was a moment where Clay is eating I think it was a noodle soup. I'm not entirely sure. Had noodles on it. Anyway, he starts drinking at the bowl and he's slurping and all that. And AD's looking at him like, wow, you really enjoying your food, huh? And then he starts clearing up the plates. And I don't know why there was this comedic music going on in the background. And AD's looking at him like, wow, really? And I'm like, am I missing something here? Because I'm that person. Admittedly, I don't do it every single time I go to a restaurant. But it's not unusual for me to like take a plate, clear it, put all the food into one, pile the plates up, neat and tidy. Like, why was this a whole thing? Like, I can't be the only one. I mean, my family, they do it sometimes as well. Like, it's about preparing the stuff so when the waiter or waitress comes over, they don't have to clamor and put all the stuff together. You've just done it for them. Why was this made into some big weird comedic moment because he tied up all the food? Maybe it's because I do it. I didn't see why it was so weird or why it was seen as some sort of comedic moment. AD's facial expressions though were quite funny. I will say that. But then after that, he goes quiet. Like, it was almost like somebody switched him off. He was looking in the scenery, and it was a beautiful scenery, but he didn't say anything. And AD's like, are you okay? And then he starts saying, you know, I'm really afraid I don't want to let you down. So AD's like, well, why are you worried about letting me down? And this conversation comes up a couple times where he's talking about that, like, he really cares about her, he wants to marry her, like, he reassures her to the hills, I'm in this, I want to be in this. But then he starts talking more and more about his dad. And this also happened again when they went home. Similar conversation. He starts revealing the fact that his dad was a big, big player, a big cheater as well. His parents were married for 25 years, but his dad was cheating a lot. And he even reveals the fact that his dad would bring him to his little cheating sessions. And I'm like, that is absolutely disgusting. I mean, he's allowed to be good about his dad, but I don't have to be. I don't know the man. That's disgusting. It's one thing to cheat on your wife, but to bring a child to your mistresses or your side chicks, whatever they were, because not everybody even knows that they are the mistress. But what kind of parent does that? Like, that's... No. Anyway, I digress. So he reveals the fact that, like, for him, he's realising that he's got some demons he needs to work on. And now it makes sense why he keeps talking about wanting to go to therapy. Because for him, as far as he's concerned, in his world, he's never seen a successful black marriage where the man does not actually end up cheating. He talks about Will Smith. He talks about other celebrities as well. Diddy never actually got married, but Diddy is... We're not going to go down the road of Diddy because that's a whole different video for a whole different day. But anyway, he starts making the point that, like, he's never seen a good representation of marriage. And so it makes him question himself and think, can I stick to one woman for the rest of my life? But I want to stick with you, AD. You're the one I wanted to work with. So I want to do therapy. Now, this conversation was a weird one because there's, on one side, AD is getting the full picture of everything. He's being transparent with her. And he's saying he wants to make the relationship work. He sees himself marrying her. He wants to be with her. He wants to do the therapy because he knows that he's fighting these demons about marriage, particularly marriage for him. And he seems to be getting cold feet as well. But it's really concerning when you've only got a couple of weeks to get married. And he went on the show knowing that this was going to be the thing. And he actually wants to be married. And he doesn't want to have this fear anymore. But he's telling you that this is something he's really afraid of. If this is him before marriage, what about when you're actually married and things start to hit your marriage? I think AD needs to be concerned and she needs to be worried, honestly. Because yes, as much as we appreciate his honesty, if this is him now, What is he going to be like when it's like a year in, 2 years, 5 years in, 10 years, 20 years in? I mean, at least he wants to do the work, I suppose. But I do think that AD needs to be worried. He's showing you all of his stuff. Can you handle that, AD? Because if he cheats on you in 5 years' time, he can say he's already warned you. This is all he ever knows. He wasn't sure if he could be a one-woman man. I can't speak for therapy, but I don't think he can fix that in 3 weeks. So I don't think at this stage they should be getting married. It's probably too early to call it, but I don't think she should marry him. Maybe see if the relationship can work, go a bit longer, but I don't think in 3 weeks he's going to get over that fear, because that's too big a mountain to overcome with 3 therapy sessions. So that concludes episode 7, and I cannot wait to catch up with episodes 8 and 9, because I need Jessica to come into the place. I need Jessica to enter the vicinity. I need her to come in and start that madness, because we already know that story's coming. I need to see Trevor back in the place. So thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. If you haven't already, please do press the like button, and also don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you back here tomorrow for episode 8. So take care. Bye.